Welcome to the Sharpe Club. Yes, it is a little bit past 9 p.m. on the East Coast on a Monday, which means it's a late night for me. See, guys like me, we don't go party on Friday or Saturday night anymore. We party now on Monday. Well, we don't really party. But anyway, I'm too old to party, I guess. But maybe I'm not. I'd be the weird guy in the club, though, wouldn't I? So, no, I don't want to be the weird guy in the club. So instead, I'm going to be here with you at 9 o'clock. In fact, you people who are partying, you just like taking a shower at 9 or something. Anyway, I am definitely not in the club area, but it's my club. And today we're talking about something very special. We are talking about trying to get into marginalized communities or traditionally marginalized communities, you know, for both activism and politics and just to help them out in different ways. And I have a star panel tonight. I am so happy to people that I have with me this evening. I have a consultant who's been here before, the wonderful and talented Charla Burnett. How are you?
Doing well, Larry. How are you?
Awesome. I also have one of a town council out there in the awesome state of California, my friend Kelly Carden. How are you?
Hey, Larry, I'm great, man. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming out. And the man, the myth, the legend, the one and the only, the man who I have seen go up against the system more than once, and you can't keep this man down. It's impossible. The solutionary himself, Maj Toure. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. What's up, Larry? Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Hey,
awesome that you guys are here. And the question I want to bring up is, I think when most people think about marginalized communities, they think about going into the poor neighborhood, think about going into the hood, which when I was a kid, it was called the ghetto, but now it's called the hood, whatever. So they think about going into these areas. That's what they think about. Now, there's a lot more than just that, but that's what people think about.
Yeah.
I think about a couple, maybe 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, whatever it was, the Democratic Party was very good in flooding the zone. A lot of bodies out there talking to people in marginalized communities, you know, getting activists on the ground, very good at it. And then the Republicans thought, well, I can't beat that, so why bother? And they stopped. And once the Republican Party stopped, I feel like the Democratic Party copied. And now very few people go into any marginalized community unless it is election time. Yeah. Election time, they flood the zone, they show you how much they love you, and you never see them ever again. Am I wrong on this?
No, that's 100% accurate generally in urban America. I think that, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think, so it's right. I think the deeper question is the why.
Okay.
Why does it go that way? The first thing that comes to mind is if my base, if I'm interested in just appearing to fight, right?
Right.
And not really fighting. And I can come up with every way to spin how the fight is rigged and there's no way for the fight. After I fought to a certain level of prominence in a political party, it makes sense to either fight a different way or just don't fight and pretend like you're fighting. So, for example, if the Republican Party shows up initially and they're fighting for the rights of the Republic and conservative values and limited government, and it's the party for Black folks. And they're like, absolutely, we're doing this. And it's a third party. And at that time, everyone's going like, what? There'll never be a third party. Like, that will never be viable. Then you start to win. A lot of these, you know, not a lot.
I want to touch that piece you brought up. By the way, Maj, someone's telling me you're getting an echo. Do you have headphones you can put in or something and have your
Yeah, let me grab some headphones. Y'all go ahead. I'm grabbing headphones.
Yeah. So let me move to what he just said, Charla. I think there's a lot of people, and I'm sure you've seen this, who their activism is just symbolic. They're not actually trying to fix anything. They're just saying, see, I was here. Did you do anything? No. Did you help anybody? No. But look at me around the people, whoever the people are, right? Oh, it's a poor Hispanic community. It's a poor Black community. See, I'm around them. I'm not doing anything, but see, I'm around them. I mean, you've had to have seen this before, haven't you?
I mean, particularly from the Democratic Party, there's a lot of virtue signaling that happens. And as you pointed out, it happens a lot during the election period. And then the return on their investment, when people show up to vote, they just don't see it. And so after years and decades of the same thing happening over and over again, it's not that the Democratic Party isn't trying to infiltrate the communities of marginalized groups to garner their vote. It's just the fact that they don't care anymore and they don't believe anything they say.
So, but Kelly, you have gone to these communities. You have been in them yourself when you were running in the past, before, when you just as an activist, you have been in these communities. So is it working for you or no?
Well, so, in the past, I was a youth pastor and I worked at the Las Vegas Dream Center, and I lived and worked in the ghetto. I mean, the project, the biggest project in Vegas was right across the street from the church. And I lived right next door to the church. So I would regularly see those things where holiday season, the politicians start calling us, hey, what kind of work do you have going on? Can we jump in and help with Thanksgiving? Well, yeah, we're feeding 10,000 people. Of course you want to help with that. But when I gave away 100 backpacks or knocked on doors 3 weeks ago, you didn't even want to return my call,
Right.
And then what happens is so from a politician's point of view, right, I am, being elected, is these guys, the rules don't state that they have to live in their district typically. So even when they come up, they leave.
Right. That literally is how, by the way, that's literally how AOC got her seat. AOC is my congressperson. AOC, the person before her was a guy named Crowley. This guy represented Queens and lived in Virginia. I'm not joking. He represented Queens. He lived in Virginia. He lost that seat because he was sleeping. He was in Virginia hanging out and went, oh, shit, I lost my seat. That's basically what happened.
Maxine Waters is, a local Los Angeles congresswoman, and she doesn't live in her district. She lives there's no nice homes in her district, so why would she possibly live there? But that begins to speak to like what Maj had said earlier. They start garnishing this power, and then it doesn't matter anymore. So even when you get these grassroots activists, once they're gone from the community, what do they care anymore? Last year I did a lot of work with, here in California, we had the Dolores Huerta Foundation. And Dolores Huerta, she marched with Chavez. And she's a big proponent of how they reshape different communities, did the county districts. And we argued, I got in a big argument with them because they wanted to shape everything so it would be like Latino dominant.
Oh, God.
My question was but the way they were going to do it was they were going to centralize power in the actual county seat in the city and have a fewer supervisors for the outlying seats. So my question is how do you make the richest part of the county stronger and expect that to politically spill over to poorer communities? And it doesn't work, So.
Of course. Maj, you're going to say something? Sorry, go ahead.
They follow the trick. Is the echo a little bit better, everybody?
Yeah.
I think it's better.
Okay. They follow the trajectory of every company that initially shows up that is innovative. They do the spiral, right? They're innovative. They come up with something creative. They're grassroots, so they know more of what's needed, and they don't really have the same restrictions to stop them from trying to be more innovative. Then they become successful. Then after they become successful, instead of doing the thing that makes them innovative, that made everybody go to Google, they start to do the same thing that AT&T or Bell Atlantic South did. They'll do the same thing that Microsoft did. They'll do the same thing if they're not very, very careful. How I try to, I haven't made nearly enough money to get impacted by that yet. And I'm trying to kind of, it's on the way. and that'll be like the very, what's his name? Ray Dalio that did the hedge fund. Yeah. His book.
That's when you're going to sell out. And I'm going to be like, I knew Maj before you sold out. I'm going to be like that.
It's one of those numbers. And I think that the politicians, they're like teachers or those corporations when they get to that tipping point. Teachers, a lot of teachers generally take the job because they love to educate and inform children.
Right.
And then the system, the meat grinder, crushes them.
Yes, I've heard that 1,000 times.
And so I think that these politicians, they start falling in line, and then it's just once or twice, and then it's and it's like a cop on the tape.
Let me give. I mean, look, obviously, I'm not a fan of AOC. I didn't vote for her. However, what I will say is I want to give her credit where credit was due. She busted her rump for that first seat. I mean, her team knocked on my door. She worked. That seat was not given to her. Yeah. She worked for that seat and she got it. And now that she has it, nobody can see her anymore. So now you don't see her anymore, right? And when she comes to Queens, people just yell at her. And I mean, literally, they just yell at her, right? So she, and I think what she said to herself, and this is my opinion, I don't know her personally, this is just my view based on what you just said. It is, she's like, why bother? These people don't care. I can't change anything anyway. Don't bother. It's one of the reasons why Justin Amash said he left the Senate. He left Congress. He said, basically, I'm on Twitter on Congress, so I can just not be in Congress and I'm still on Twitter. My influence is Twitter. My influence is, I can't make any changes, broken system. So I might as well just keep tweeting. I make the same change. That was his thought process.
If you don't live where the struggle is, it's very easy to be disenchanted.
Yeah.
Because the vast majority of the things are broken systems. Yep. If you don't run into those people in your district, in your area that you're like, hey man, I saw a speech when you were on the corner over there. Or for me, how it used to happen a lot was I sold a ton of DVDs on the trains when DVDs were a thing. Yep. And some of the young people, I would see the young people and I would be like, hey man, if you guys stay out of trouble, when I see you, I'm going to ask you a math question. And if you get the math question right, whoever 2 out of 5 of y'all that get it right, I'm going to give y'all a free DVD. I've seen those kids that when they were 10 and now they're like 20. And so they're like, yo, man, I stayed out of trouble because I remember you used to give me DVDs on the train.
That's good.
And it's the weirdest thing. But if you detach,
I feel it too, right? And I'm guilty of this. What you just said, Maj, I am guilty of. I live 15 to 20 minutes away from my old neighborhood in the Bronx. I don't go there anymore, right? That's not true. I go there sometimes. I still have nostalgia. I do go there. I've taken my daughters where I used to live, all those places. But I've been out of that neighborhood now for decades. And while I feel comfortable going back there because I grew up there, the people don't see me like they used to see me anymore, right? They don't see me as that guy at all. They see me as some guy who left. So while I feel connected, they don't feel connected to me.
Well, that's because you took your resources and your brain with you. That's what Malcolm said. That's what happens. Because like my daughters, they're homeschooled. Like we're moving into a new place now, right? You take your brain and your resources with you. The problem with that is the people that we need to impact and change, they need our brains and our resources. Right. And so like the more, I would just challenge everyone, the more or the longer that you can stay and or at least have some sort of connections. The Solutionary Center for me is a connection.
Right. I'm in the hood. It gets you back in the hood every day. Right. Yep.
Every day. Absolutely. And
hold on, Charla was going to say something. Let me get Charla in. You want to say something? I saw you nodding your head. Yes.
Yeah. Like you said, though, when for me personally, I left and then I came back to my home city, and have been working to try to make a difference for the last 4 years. And you keep though running up to the issue of now that you've had experiences that other people cannot have because they cannot leave. And so you have gained a certain level of wisdom that you're kind of in Plato's cave where you're screaming, the house is, everything's on fire. And now people hate you because you're bringing up all the bad things. And that's a serious battle. And it puts people who have sacrificed a lot in the predicament where they're emotionally and physically burnt out. And that's why they end up leaving again, because they don't want to handle that. I think when we're talking about marginalized communities, and two things that people forget to like acknowledge is the fact, no matter what, usually the people who can get out of their situation still had some sort of privilege or leg up over everyone else to even be able to take advantage of those opportunities, whether it was ability, just you were born smarter than other people so that you could see through the bullshit, or you had an opportunity given to you just because you knew somebody. And number two, if we like to pretend that marginalized communities can't be corrupt, and the individuals leading those communities can't be corrupt, and they can.
Oh, they can.
They can. Just as bad, but because they come from some marginalized community, whether it's the LGBTQ community or it's the Black community, we say, oh, well, they had struggled growing up. They must have our best interest at hand. And a lot of times they don't, because they're susceptible to the same corruption as everyone else.
Well, and what happens in these marginalized communities is they a lot of times lack the resources to fight back. So poor people don't realize they're being fleeced, right? But then, I mean, let's be frank, like what you described, when you leave the community, we used to call it becoming whitewashed.
Sure.
And then people get jealous of it, and to hit on what Charla just said, I used to work pretty regularly with a police captain in Vegas. And one time he told me, so Kelly, 90% of these boys that you meet won't leave more than 3 miles from their houses. The only 2 ways that they leave are to go to jail or to go to the military. So when you mention that leg up, unfortunately, that's the only way a lot of these guys have to get out.
Well, that was mine, right? I joined the Marine Corps at 17. That was my way out. I joined the Marine Corps, and I didn't come back for 10 years. Like I left, and I was in the Marine Corps for 7. I lived overseas for 4 after that. So I didn't come back for 11 years. And then I'm back in New York. I've been in New York since then. But that's how I got out. I was out, and I wasn't coming back. And I didn't come back for 11 years.
I think that, to me, the reason why I'm always going to be hood adjacent is I enjoy fucking the system up. And if I leave, the system doesn't get fucked up as fast. Like me telling people what pitfalls to look for. Here's an LLC. Here's this. Like I told so many people that were getting fleeced for EIN numbers. Like they were going online and paying for an EIN number. And I was just like, yo, the IRS, if you want to do it that way, the IRS gives that up for free, bro. Like here go right to irs.gov. My point is, and I'm not saying like that's the height of revolutionary action, like getting a tax ID number, but
that's the beginning. That's the start.
Yeah, and then it becomes like here's a tax accountant, and here's how you could not pay nothing on none of this, or at least as lawfully possible.
Sure.
So I kind of enjoy it because I said this before. It was a tweet. All I really want to do is like freedom and liberty shit. I enjoy it.
Yep.
I enjoy being the anomaly in the room. I enjoy creating force multipliers. I enjoy, having those light bulb moments and communicating with people.
Hold on, let's walk down that road, right? There are systems, and this goes back kind of to Charla's point. There are systems in place that make it a whole lot harder that if you are poorer, and this doesn't matter if it's the hood or whether it's the barrio or whether it's the trailer park or whatever you want to call the tough neighborhood or the bad place, wherever that is, that really make it a whole lot harder. And what I want to bring up, which I hear all the time, is family law, right? The family court system does beat everybody up. That's true. It does beat everybody up, but it beats up poor men more than anybody.
Yeah.
And everyone gets beat up, but the people who get beat up the most is poor men. They get hammered in the family law system. And how do you defend yourself? LLC ain't gonna defend you in that one, right? How do you defend yourself against a massive system that's out there just to devastate you? And it makes money off your misery.
This is a fantastic question, and I can provide you with a really great example. We run a transitional home for displaced people. So I live with people who are often men who have been caught up in the court system, family court system. And one of them had been homeless for years, came to us, said, I'm done. I want to get a house. I want to get my stuff together. He had several kids. His ex gets benefits from the state. And so anytime he tries to go get employment, of course, it's minimum wage because he doesn't have an education.
And they take his money.
They take half of the check. And then after taxes, he's making $150 a week, working 40 hours a week. That's all he takes home. And that's not even enough to cover his rent. So why would he want to get legit? There'd be no point. So of course he's working under the table. He's not contributing tax wise to building any part of society, because why would he want to? And the thing is because he's paying into the child support, she doesn't see any of it because she's receiving benefits. It goes back to paying the state. But if he was dead, she wouldn't have to pay back those benefits. So why does he have to pay back those benefits that are on her and her children that have nothing to do with him? Why are men forced to pay any child support if they're living in the poverty line? It doesn't make any sense. It just keeps people down. And then additionally to that,
the state is supporting her and the kids.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We took him to go get a bank account, to open his bank account. It was a credit union. Him and an ex-girlfriend had owed a few $100s. He worked to pay it off. So he took the money, the full amount, to the credit union, sat down and said, okay, here's the money to pay it off. I'd like to open my own bank account. They took that money and then they said, oh, I'm sorry, you owed past child support. We're not going to open a bank account for you. And then wouldn't give them the money to pay back that old bank account back. So I had to go down there with my white girl tears and literally scream at some people to get them to let him open up a bank account. And it's
powerful tears. You got a good weapon now. I'm glad you're using it for good enough evil. Yes. I'm glad you're using it for good enough evil.
This is why you got to be in that community to tell that story. Right. One, it's scary. It's like it makes a young dude listen to that a little bit differently. When I'm not sure how many of the listeners are familiar with me having a false rape accusation years ago. Scariest 2 years of my life. Best thing that ever happened to me.
What? Okay, tell me that. Come on.
You got to talk.
Why is it the best thing that ever happened to you?
When I started building Black Guns Matter, I was traveling around the country with in very, very amazing cities. I'm articulate. I'm something reasonably in shape, and I shoot guns. It's like women just show up.
Sure.
And because I had that scare, I no longer chased women after that. And I'm not saying it like you shouldn't have, if you shouldn't find a happy relationship. I'm not saying that, but it helped me build a company. It helped me build, and I'm in 2 cities a week, and this, that, and the third at that time. And so it was the best thing for the scare, the fear factor. It's the same thing.
It's kind of weird you say that, but I said the same thing. It's one of the reasons why I like being married, because I don't chase women anymore.
Right.
And if I'm not chasing women, I can be effective doing stuff. So I'm very happy I'm not chasing women anymore. I'm
have so much more stuff to do. And
absolutely. Yes.
Telling that story telling dudes that story, or, if Charla's saying, hey, watch out for this because I have a client or, someone where we live and work together, someone that I appreciate a lot. And this is the situation that he's going through. If you leave and don't tell that story, you will not create the same level of force multiplier. Right. I listen, a homeless person will teach you how to save your house.
Right. Yes. I always say that. See, you hear people say this all the time. They say, don't talk to somebody, don't listen to somebody who's not successful. That's dumb. You want to listen to, that's dumb. Right. A lot of time people who are successful have no idea why they're successful. Number one. And the second thing is, have they fallen down and then become successful? Right. Or were they just always successful? If they were always successful, don't listen to that person at all. They know nothing. They have no idea what's going on.
They got the trust fund. Their dads and their mom's lawyers hooked it all up.
That's exactly right. Yes. I would say I learned more about politics getting my ass kicked than anything else I've ever done. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. Kelly, go ahead. You were nodding your head. I'm sorry, man.
Well, so I want to go back to talking about child support, because I pay child support now. And I remember when I had my first son and Sean and I split up and she filed child support on me, that was the most terrifying minute of my life, opening that envelope. I had no idea what to do. You can't get anyone on the phone. So unfortunately, a lot of times what happens in these communities is people just don't know any better. I hear from young guys all the time, oh man, I paid $400 per kid and or whatever. And I'm like, that's more than I pay. You have no idea that there's actual numbers that those judges do go by, but they don't know how to navigate the system at all. So ultimately what happens with marginalized communities is we need to empower them with knowledge, but people have to grasp that for themselves. So it does become tough,
I think they will grasp it if there's people like you all that are there to tell stories is what move people. Yeah, telling them stories and being there and them knowing that even if you do, everybody, I've traveled the world, but I'm in the hood. So I'm hood adjacent. When people see that, and then you can articulate the story to them from your travels and then coming back, we have more of a, to Charlotte's point of, you have a leg up. Whether it's you were born a little smarter, you could process information a little faster, your granddaddy left you a really dope library, whatever it is, right? Some money. I believe that,
or you join the military.
Or you join the military, because that's going to give you a structure like ungodly.
Yes. 100% it did. No question.
I absolutely would have been special forces if I would have went in the military. If I would have went to the Navy, I would have absolutely been a SEAL. If I was in the Army, I would have absolutely been a Ranger. There's no doubt about it. I have too many SF friends that are like, dude, you could have probably did this. My point, though, is we have a greater responsibility to destroy and check the state because of our superpowers. And so because of that, it almost is like we kind of suck as that's the reason why we're all doing the work that we're doing. Like if I went like red or blue and just said the party line, I would be absolutely on fire on the internet. I am 100% aware of that.
Yep.
But that's not what my demographic, our communities need. They need our resource. They don't need me to be kicking it with Kevin Hart. They need me to be in Philly saying, yo, we are from the same neighborhood as Kevin Hart, and we can build ourselves the same way, regardless if Kevin Hart comes back or not. And I think that if we look at it from that perspective, to be in there, because we all know what happens to the guys that don't have that guidance, like Kelly said. That guy that opens that letter and is like, I don't even know how they came to this number. I don't even know how they picked this price every month, right? Yeah. For that guy to run into Kelly.
Let me touch what you just said, if I could, Maj, right? Because if you look at marginalized communities right now, poorer communities, I'll say, if you look at Black poor communities, most of the time they're going to lean left. Most of the time they're going to vote Democratic. Not always, but most of the time. If you look, particularly women, particularly Black women, if you look at poorer white communities, typically going to be more conservative. They're going to vote more right, particularly white men, right? They're going to vote more right, more Republican. But if you go to Asian communities, if you go to poor Hispanic communities, it's more of a toss-up, right? It's not so cut and dry. It's not like all Asians vote Democratic or all Hispanic people vote, Republican or something. I mean, it's not so cut and dry. And depending on what part of country you're in, it shifts even more, right? Depending on the country you're in, it could shift hardcore left, hardcore right, whatever, depending on what neighborhood you're in that regard. Is this a racial issue?
So, being Asian and living in a Hispanic dominant county, I have some experience here.
Tell me, please.
So, most people don't know that Kevin McCarthy is the congressman over a county that is majority Hispanic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You never know that. But it's true. I ran for county supervisor against one of his best friends, and he whipped me, man. That guy was so rich and so connected. But, during the run-ups, I had made a comment because someone said, oh, you're just trying to get the brown vote. I said, look, dude, like brown people come from other countries. Like we have conservatives, liberals, and libertarians in other countries too, you idiot. But that's what happens. And that's how come, I think Asian and Hispanic communities are such swing votes is because we come from other places.
Yeah.
Like people, and how ignorant can you be people say every Mexican's going to vote Democrat? What do you think there's not conservatives in Mexico?
That's not true. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Depends on where you are. Absolutely. And also depends upon, also who's running. Also, right? That's another aspect also. So absolutely. But the reason why I bring this up is I'm Black on my father's side, white on my mother's side. My father's side of the family is in Florida. And when I visit them, we talk. Most of them are conservative, right? They go to church, they own, I don't want to say what weapons they own because I don't want to get in trouble, but let's just say they defend themselves with firearms. I'll say that. So they all defend themselves with firearms. They're conservative, but they vote Democrat. They vote Democrat. And that's what because is this a racial thing?
It's a marketing and cultural thing. The person that comes from a different country that has a more solid culture, right? Now it'll blend into their race or ethnicity, but the person that has a solid culture, their culture, their politics, and their economics are all going to be the same. They don't separate those.
Okay.
Their culture, their politics, and their economics are going to be the same. Like, so for example, let's take the Jewish community, right? And that they may immigrate from somewhere else. They may come here. They may have already been here. How they get their money, who they get their money with, and how much money they getting is all going to be centered around that culture. It's Larry David's show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, explains it perfectly. Like everybody's like Jewish. He's like super Jewish. And he's a comedian. So
yeah, that's what I would say is a huge contributing factor to conservatism, whether you're in the Black community, the Hispanic community, the white community. like that line of being of some traditional faith seems to surpass racial boundaries.
Now it'll get back to the ethnic or racial component after the fact, but it's still bled by the dominant themes and the people that you trust in the leadership of the culture. So if you're strong, hardcore church and your leader in that culture is saying, we got to go with Biden, we got to support Kamala, you are culturally associated with that. That's where it's coming from. Now, if you coming from a poorer area, right? This is where it could go either way. If you immigrate from a poorer country, you're usually here working hard as hell. And what you run into is, hey, if you work hard, we're going to give you a job. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to allow you to go up the ladder on the free market side. If you run into that first in Texas, you're probably going to go right. If you come in a port city, Miami, New York more especially, the Democrats run it. Yeah. They run it. Yeah. So the culture, and it is, no, we're going to hook you up. If you just come in here, you do what we say, you go here, you say this, their up is based on the culture that's presented to them. And it may not be religious.
And their goal in a port city like you're talking about is to get a union job. Mm-hmm. And that's their goal, is to get unionized if they can. And to get a union job, you got to be a Democrat. Unless you're, in my city, unless you're a cop. Cops tend to be right. Yeah. The exception of cops in New York City, you're left. You're going to vote Democrat. In fact, you could be right, but you still voting left.
Yeah, and so that's still a cultural issue. And where we fail, the people that tend to fail and don't maintain it and don't become more powerful are the people that do separate their culture from their politics and from their economics. If I show you a group of people, and if they have strong cultural values and their politics are anywhere near that person is economically going to be in a different space. Well, so when people say Indians,
I live in Astoria, Queens. Queens is the most diverse county in the entire country. Mm-hmm. And my area where I live in Astoria is used to be, not as much, but used to be heavily Greek. And I see what you're saying. The Greek community supports its own community. Yep. Like you see that the sister is married to the cousin of the other guy and they both run the store. And then that store is being run by the three bankers who are in the bank. They're the ones who give out the loans, the people who now go, they're all like helping each other. And most of them are right-leaning. I think you're right. Most of them are right-leaning.
This happens if you do it the other way too, the inverse. If you ever go out of the country and whatever beef that television is telling you to have, like American beef, like, oh, he's from North Philly, I'm from South Philly. Oh, he's like white, he's black. When you go out of the country and you don't know anybody, and then you run into an American, it lines up.
100%. When I was overseas, as a Marine overseas, we were like, everybody's green. We're all green.
Yep.
Don't matter what color, we're all green because we're not them. So we're all green.
So your culture becomes American. You understand, you like overnight understand, well, we all Americans, so we gotta, and a lot of the other things that the strength of the culture of unity is stronger than the diluted culture of disunity and chaos that you may have been subjected to when you were in America. You're under a different spell. And so these are the things, that's the reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why a lot of freed slaves or blacks during Jim Crow, when they went overseas, they didn't come back.
Paris.
Yes, France was full of them. Absolutely, didn't come back. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people who don't understand or haven't been around the American Black community don't understand why so many of the names in the Black community sound French and have a French connection. Why in the world would that be true?
Yeah.
Like Maj Toure. Yes. So we were very happy, right? Maybe my daughter might have been named after a specific Josephine Baker. I'm just saying maybe or maybe not Josephine. So I'm just saying, I mean, we understand that's kind of a cultural aspect of many American Blacks. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Even down to like, years ago, I tried to study a few African languages. I've been to Ghana, I've been Senegal, I've been to Ghana, I've been to Cairo. I mean, I'm saying cities and states, but you guys get my point. Even the language, even Toure being like generally West African, but it has French.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I started to learn, attempt to learn Kiswahili, that's even that language is like a mosh posh of culture, because it was created from like the slave, like Arabic, French, and other languages put together.
Swahili,
so it could
they were trying to create a common tongue.
Right. And so it's like even that is like, if it's the largest spoken language in certain parts of Africa, it's because culturally it was embedded.
Yep.
You know, and so like culture is a amazing phenomenon. So, but
let me do some admin, Maj. I do a little bit of admin if I can.
Okay.
Guys, if you're liking what you're hearing, then do me a favor, click that like button. If you're out there watching, listening right now, the like button does matter. It's how I get past all the algorithms. So please help me get past them. It does matter tremendously. Also, support the people who are here, right? You can check out all their information. I left it all in the description. But if you want to follow them, help them out, follow them on Twitter. You can follow Charla at Charla Burnett. You can follow Kelly at Kelly Carden 14 and Maj at Maj Toure. Follow them, see what they're doing, check them out. All their information is in the description. Please see what they're doing. It does matter. They're giving us some great time. So support them back if you can. And of course, you want to support me, support my sponsors. Head over to theadvocates.org and take the world's smallest political quiz if you want to. You take that quiz and then you share it. And then people see that, and then they share it too. And then we start having conversations. We talk about going into poor neighborhoods. Take the police accountability survey. It takes like 4 or 5 minutes. Take the survey, see where you end up, and then share that. You do that, you are supporting the show, and it's free. Cost you nothing. Come on, how cheap is that? Cost you nothing. You support the show. They are my sponsor. Please do that. And of course, no matter what, click that like button. I would appreciate it. I want to, Charla, you would nod in your head. Tell me where your head is on what we just talked about. Is there a racial issue? Is it a cultural issue? Is it a ethnic issue? What is it?
I mean, I think that these differences among us are always going to be exploited to put people in power. So as long as they can divide us, they're going to continue to focus on what our divisions are, because it's divide and conquer mentality. This is philosophical. It's embedded in all of our literature. But what I think, honestly, at least for my community, and I would love to hear from Maj and Kelly, is substance abuse. So even when I'm in marginalized communities, and I'm talking about like just straight up my own community, Lansing is one of the most biracial cities in the entire country. So we have a melting pot here. And
hold on, Charla, I want to be clear on what you just said. That's an important distinction. New York City, while very diverse, is not a melting pot. We're a quilt.
Yeah, no, we're biracial. Like everybody is.
No, we are.
Everything.
The Greeks are here. The Jews are here. The blacks are here. We are a quilt. We're not. We don't.
Yeah, no. So a lot of these communities are intertwined in a way that it doesn't necessarily happen in a lot of like larger urban areas. And we also have a huge immigrant population. Lansing is a relocation site for refugees. So we have around 50,000 like refugees that live in the mid-Michigan area. And Michigan is just ravaged by the opiate epidemic. And so when we try to go into marginalized communities, socioeconomic poor communities, they can't even grasp, they don't have a grasp on reality, because drugs put you in a place where you are mind, body, and soul just not here, not present, not in control of your own life. So we're trying to ask.
Let me put a spin on that, Charla, if I could. Let me put a spin on that, if I could. The opioid crisis is a big crisis now. It was a crisis for the Black community 20, 30 years ago, right? You guys are just catching up.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
But the
You're just catching up. I'm just being right.
The community treats it differently. The white community ostracizes the person on drugs. The white community takes their children away from them. The white community treats them like they're horrible, and they never speak to them again. The Black community, yes, sometimes that happens, but they'll still have their brother, their sister, their mother over on family occasions.
That's true.
And they try to be supportive no matter what. And that's I think why these fabrics of society within white communities have been completely decimated on a different level. Whereas, I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's a big difference between being the person who decides to do it for money and the person who's deciding to do it for pain. and trying to cover up the harm and the transgenerational guilt that I think white Americans actually feel deep down inside for the atrocities that have been committed in their name, whether they were a part of it or not, where they're having a spiritual crisis, where they're trying to numb that pain because they were promised the American dream, and then the American dream didn't come for them, and they can't grapple with that fact because they're so entitled. They feel like they're entitled to that dream. And so for us here, it's like, how do we get them to care about housing or these issues with the government and show up to actually be in the room to speak their truth to these issues when they're too wrapped up in needing services like mental health care and recovery? And there
Kelly,
is.
you have dealt with this directly. I mean, you have dealt with what Charla's on directly. Do you have an opinion on this? Is Charla on the right track here?
I think she is. I think what happens is there's such a level of distrust in these marginalized communities anyways, that it's really hard to make entry into them to provide treatment. But so I had a cousin 3 days after his 23rd birthday, him and his buddies were doing drugs, right? They were partying, and he got pulled over by a police officer, and he swallowed an 8-ball of cocaine trying to hide it from the cops. And he immediately passed away a couple days later. It was the most horrific thing I'd ever experienced in my life. But I remember thinking he's so much more afraid of going to jail than he was of what was going to happen by throwing this baggie down his throat. And so there's that. Like you mentioned, like white communities also, they don't like the druggies. They kick them out, right? So I was on a very right-leaning radio show here in Kern County, and he tried to corner me on the whole libertarian thing. And he said, "Oh, are you just a libertarian thinks all drugs should be legal, right?" And I looked at him and I said, "It's not that I think all drugs should be legal. It's that I don't think that sick people should be getting thrown in prisons." And he immediately paused the show and looked at me and goes, "Holy shit. Like, I've never had it explained that way." I said, "Look, I don't think that people should be doing drugs either. And I, more than anybody, I believe that, right? But I don't think people should be so afraid of getting thrown in a cell for the rest of their lives for doing it,
Yes.
So my take is a little bit, I can't justify it because I've sold these things to people. So from a free market, this is going to sound really fucked up. From a free market enterprise perspective, they want it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Supply and demand.
Right. From an aftermath perspective of from the 80s, 90s to now, looking at Kensington and Philly, which is like the world's largest open air drug market now. I'm like, the government did it again. This is snowfall. Just instead of it being freebase, or crack, it's opioids. It's fent. Is H. It's whatever.
But I want to be clear. They don't. I mean, to be forward, the average addict doesn't specifically want terrible drugs.
No.
They just want to get high and or escape, right?
Yeah.
And if we were to provide them with safe drugs, they would rather take the safe drugs, right? It's not like they want the bad drugs. They just want to escape, and they want to deal with their withdrawal symptoms. So if we could give them safer drugs, I think they'd be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't want to give them anything. They all fucked up. Like, I'm scared of different types of weed right now.
Yeah.
Like some weed that I'm like, nah, this isn't, something's different. And I gotta
touch what you said though, Maj. The reason why is because the government has made it the black market. So if you tell me to be legal, yes, I do. Yeah. Because if they were all legal, there would be no meth. There would be no crack. There would be no fentanyl.
It's not, we don't have to find this horribly, even if I got the same buzz without the potential death.
Yes.
It would be a commercial for it, like same great high, no death opportunity.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that all of these perspectives are real, and it's always going to go back to the state for me. The state is responsible for all of this. Yeah. And so again, back to the earlier conversation too, which is why I love just being there to go like, no, I'm gonna fuck your play up because I can see the play. When you tell a young person to say, yo, the fent is the same thing as like if you get them and talk to a older person that was able to beat and not die from crack, like real crack, like not the crack now, like functioning, like Night of the Living Dead crackheads, right?
Yep.
If you could get that older person to talk to them and show them and be like, nah, that was just like this. The difference was they were more violent, right? Yeah. That young person understands it. And then that's an opportunity for us as libertarians to come in and say, you know, to Larry's point, here's how the state has impacted that. To Charla's point, to say, here's how the state takes advantage of that. And, you know, to Kelly's point of here's how the state deliberately makes sure that this person is not educated and is living in fear. Right. If we can give this whole holistic perspective, that destroys the racial division, because it's like, oh, no. We just dropped the crack off in your community first, Black community. You guys were the test market. That's it. Right. And we've refined it. We've had 30 or 40 years to make a TV show on Breaking Bad about that. We hit you guys with like Snowfall, but we just hitting y'all with these guys with Breaking Bad. So then we have an opportunity to present solutions and say, oh, it's the same thing, just branded different, right? Oh, it's the same. It's that same white male that's going to get hit once he's hit with the scourge of this addiction. And now his baby mom says, we're going to take.
This is the point I think that Charla was bringing up. And I think what Kelly has been trying to bring, you know, the idea of getting high doesn't have to come from drugs. Some people get it from running, some people get it from church, some people get it from hanging out and playing video games, right? I mean, whatever is the thing, we all of us want to get high and hang out with our friends. How we choose to get high is up to us, and which friends we are with is up to us. But we all want to get high with our friends. But to do that, we have to have some hope. Yeah. Right. We have to have some community. We have to believe that tomorrow matters. And I think Kelly, from him and I talking, that's one of the things he's trying to get people to understand. There's a tomorrow and it matters. But when all I care about is getting my next high, I don't care about tomorrow. Yeah. All I care about is getting rid of the withdrawal symptoms that I have right now. I don't care about tomorrow. So how do we get into a community that feels like I don't care about tomorrow? Like, I'll have 5 kids because I'm going to jail in a couple of months anyway, because I've been there 3 times. I'm going back again. I can't get a job because, to Charles' point, if I get a job, then I'm losing my money. So I'm going to stay in the black market. And when I stay in the black market, if my boss does not pay me, now I got to hit him over the head with a bat because I can't sue him because I'm in the black market. So now I got gang war on me all of a sudden. So now I'm going to jail anyway, and so on and so on and so on. How do we get past that when the Democrats and Republicans just go, you know, whatevs, good luck?
Criminalize. That's what the Democrat and the Republicans want. They just want to criminalize it and shame people for something that they're doing behind closed doors anyway.
Yep.
It's
so what's cool for rich people and bad for poor people doing coke.
Look, my client base before the lockdowns was heavily Wall Street types, right? Banker types and stuff. All of them get high, but they get high either on cocaine or recently it was Adderall. They would snort Adderall, right? That was the thing a lot of them would do. Half these guys on Wall Street are either snorting Adderall or snorting because it's safer, right? They want safer drugs. They have money. They make lots of money. They buy the safer drugs, the ones that aren't so bad. They're not smoking crack. They don't have to. They got cash. So they're having better drugs.
The way to get people to recognize that is to you. And I've had experience with showing them how it's all the state. It's all the state. I mean, now I'm not saying that we are absolving people of their individual choices or agency or autonomy. I'm saying some of those choices that you made, if there's 1,000 choices and the state only showed you 3, right? The state is lying to you. You know, and I think that what Democrats and Republicans have successfully done is blame the other side while they're handshaking the other side behind closed doors, where libertarians have succeeded and continue and will further succeed is saying, nah, first of all, those 2 dudes are shaking hands behind the closed doors and they are the state. If I can show you, Larry, we were talking about, you know, like there's a great book called The Color of Law. And it's a Jewish dude that wrote it because people was like, oh, you're just being mean towards Jewish people. It's like, bro, shut the hell up. But nonetheless, it spoke to the legislation that literally created the concept of redlining in America.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? And so you would have just had voluntary association if the state didn't sanction it and so-called legitimize it. So when we consistently show from all of these different backgrounds and show all of those people, yeah, this was a government-sponsored program to keep you divided, to keep you asleep. And that way, we can give them a clearly defined enemy. We are enemies of the state, period. And when you do it that way, it's very difficult for them to use their media as skillfully to make us fight each other, right? Trump DeSantis, that's a thing. Now we've just divided. You guys said you were all GOP, all whatever. You know, Trump is beefing with DeSantis, right? You know, Trump might go to jail. What do you think DeSantis people? And the divide starts to further happen. When you can go, what if that's the state making us argue about that and not talk about the Nord Stream pipeline, talk about...
So let me walk down that road. You just brought it up here. Is this an economic issue then, right? Because the reason why I want to bring this up is twofold. I kind of want to get back to what I brought up earlier. And I brought it up to you, Maj, and I was surprised by your answer. I asked you when we were together in California, I said, look, I have tried to get into many Black communities here in New York City. And I would go to Black churches sometimes. And there was an opportunity when I went to a Black church, as soon as they found that I wasn't Democrat, they physically got up and walked out the church. Like literally got up and walked out the church. And I was like, wow, I didn't say anything yet. I mean, who knows what I was going to say, but I wasn't Democrat. Got up, walked out the church. And I was like, wow, this was 2018 when it happened to me. And Maj, you said something that shocked me because I was like, how do we fix that? And you were like, don't bother. You were like, you're not going to get any place there. Don't waste your time.
You won't get the people. You won't get the people in the church at the church. You'll get the people from the church outside of the church. I mean, earlier in the conversation, that conversation about culturally, we are listening to this guy. And if this guy has taken a backdoor donation, among other potential things, from, you know, these other guys with these brown paper bags of money, he has his culture is quid pro quo. That's his culture.
Okay.
And he's leading his flock that way.
Yeah.
You can get the flock. It's like I have the same access to the internet as everybody that's on TV.
Right.
So just get the people that's on the internet. But it won't be through the Breakfast Club first. You know what I'm saying? It's just not going to be there. They have, you know, my nana used to say, the devil's going to do what the devil's supposed to do. God's supposed to do what God's supposed to do. They just playing the devil's game. They just doing it, and they're very well at it. I mean, we gotta respect their gangster too. It's amazing. It's amazing that for damn near, I mean, hundreds of years at this point, outside of, you know, so-called emancipation, the Black church has progressively done worse and worse and worse in urban communities, like just bad. No new programs.
I want to cut this. Kelly has actually done, you know, he's done the Lord's work in these tough communities. Kelly, what do you think about what I just said and what Mara said?
Yeah, you're not getting in the church. I'll tell you that straight out. But no, you know where you're going to meet him at is when you're handing them hot dogs at the block party.
Okay. This is what Maj says. So Maj is right. Okay, we got it. Okay.
So remember, these are communities that are resource starved. So if you want an immediate in without making the 100 visits into the hood, then you've got to give them something. You got to feed them. I mean, sorry, like it's just the way it is. You know, so what we would do, and we would go into these same communities 4 or 5 days a week. I mean, I'd give the same kid would get Easter gifts, Christmas gifts, Thanksgiving dinner. Like I knew these kids' names. I'll tell you what, man, the first time I'll never forget, we knocked on this door, and it's called Marble Manor is the name of the project. And the door opens, and this little like 3-year-old girl opened the door. I remember, whoa. And I look around, and there's like 6 kids and a mom, and they're all sitting on the floor on pillows watching TV on a Minnie Mouse TV that was on top of a milk crate. That was all they had.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I'm going to ask for forgiveness instead of permission. And I went and stole a bunch of furniture out of a warehouse that we had. And I brought it in. And from there, like that family, then we began to build something. But it's because I had to meet their need first. So meeting marginalized communities is a long game. Hundreds of
okay.
You know, and the Democrats and Republicans don't have time for a long game because they're only there for 90 days every 2 years.
No, right. But look, you know why too? Because they already played their long game.
Yeah, and they're already into
like they had way back from then when, you know, what's the name say? I'll have those niggas voting Democrat for 200 years. At this point, how long ago was that?
Yeah.
Yes. So we still got more time. Damn, we're not done yet.
Right. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's a.
We were free. We're not. Damn.
When they're at a comfortable space where it's like 90% of the demographic is going this way, I understand their trust in I don't have to show up consistently because I got 90. If I do anything, like I have an A in that class.
Right. That's true. Yes.
I don't. There's almost no studying needed now. I mean, it's the problem with that theory for them is they're Mike Tyson in Japan fighting Buster Douglas.
Okay.
They feel because they've been dominant, and there's no way to decentralize these libertarians, these people talking about liberty. There's no way that people from different backgrounds are going to have conversations about liberty. There's no way. I mean, I've heard the same thing. Like everybody, I remember the old regime, even in the Libertarian Party, was like, yeah, sure, these Mises dudes, yeah, you guys are going to take over the party, whatever. My point in saying this is not to disparage anyone else. It's after a while, when you're successful, if you're not careful, there's young upstarts. This is that spiral again.
Yep.
They have the thing though is they're making so many colossal blunders and they're making the same mistakes that all empires make, and all big companies, all arrogant boxers. They think they're the bee's knees, and this is a great opportunity for us.
Let me ask you this question here. Do you think, like I see it, when it comes to the Black community, right? And if anyone can give me any insight in other communities, I'm happy to hear it. When it comes to the Black community, I am seeing Black men move away from the Democratic Party. I am not seeing that many Black women move away from Democratic Party. That's just my anecdotal, what I'm seeing. So that's what I see.
Because the women, the men, the men are generally treated like trash, and they like forget this, right? It's like Trump ran his first campaign. He had to run like a Black dude, right? The traditional, like, I'm on the outside. No one gives a fuck about me. Even if I got some money from whatever I'm selling, I got these baby moms. Like, that's Trump's story. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's literally Trump's story. And so it's like, if I win, I'm going to be like, everybody's going to be like, yo, fuck that dude. If I lose, they were going to be like, dude, did you really think you were going to fucking win? That's a good try, though. So it's easy for us to do that. The whole thing is designed around Black women, though. I mean, since captivity.
Literally, the Democratic Party, they have a target market. They come up with a target person, right? And their target person is an urban Black woman over 50. That is literally their target. They're talking to that person to get their base.
She's the leader of the house.
Yes, leader of the house.
And look at the culture. Look at the politics. Again, they have not deviated. Their culture that they push, the politics that's associated with, and their economics are all designed for circulated around the Black woman. Yeah. Now, how do we get that Black woman to leave that demographic? You keep showing. Candace Owens was gonna do it if she kept saying she sharpened her talking points. She was saying so many repulsive things, and I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean that it was being repulsive.
No, it's okay. It was rude.
Yeah, and so there's a she was saying so many horrible things that it made so many Black women stay right where they were. Yes. Even though her organization was called Blexit, right?
Yes.
She started sharpening her talking points, and now you're going to start to see more Black women go, well, maybe this was, and not even just her. You also have, because of social media, you have so many women that are on the Republican. Libertarians don't have many of them. We don't have many Black women, outspoken Black women.
It's true. We don't have many. You're right.
But the Republican Party, Kim Klacik, Angela Stanton King, Shamika
hold on. I want to bring those up though, right? There's a big difference between those two, right? I mean, Kim Klacik, she goes to the hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kim Klacik does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Angela Stanton King, she goes to the hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't find Candace Owen in no hood. You can't. Stop.
And that's the reason why over the next few years, you're going to start seeing so many more young professional Black women. They're going to skip over the Libertarian Party if we don't have representation in that demographic.
No, you're right. You are right.
You know what I'm saying? And they're going to go right to the GOP, because if you're a young professional and all of the television shows are in alignment with that, and you see that the Democratic Party, because the conversation about how horrible the Democratic Party is not being missed, and this current administration is doing all of the heavy lifting for us to show us how bad the Democratic Party is.
Right.
They will jump right over the libertarian space is wide open. I think Donnie.
I agree.
You know, but it's that's the reason why they currently haven't left. And Tommy Laren's a friend of mine, but some of her talking points a few years ago were so harsh that Black women stayed right there. Now, because those talking points are not as that, Black women are going to start leave. The men already was just like, y'all wasn't giving.
Let me touch a couple of those things if I could. When I look at someone like Candace Owens, I don't think that's repairable. She clearly doesn't even like Black people. I mean, she doesn't even like Black people. So no, that's not repairable. However, Tommy though, she got humbled, and that's good, right? When I got my ass kicked, that's when I got humbled. I was like, oh, okay, you think you're super smart? Oh, you got an ass whipping, so maybe you're not so super smart. So I got humbled, and I started thinking differently about what happened. I think Tommy had a similar issue with that. Candace hasn't fallen down yet. She hasn't had her ass kicked yet. So she's not ready to make a turn yet.
No, what I'm saying is she doesn't need to make the turn. Her talking points are shifting, not because I believe that she cares about the community. I think her talking points are shifting because she understands that she repulsed a lot of that. And if you're trying to make a bigger splash on a bigger network, you have to now start talking. You got to say, oh, I stand with Meg the Stallion. She's saying some of the same talking points that Democrats do. Yeah. Black women talking points. Okay. Because otherwise, if she was just harping on all entertainers are bad, all such and such and such and such, Black women would, just by the very definition of opposing what she appears to be, I'm going to stay right here. This is where we talk about pop culture. It's still a culture. It's a subculture.
Okay, before we go down that road, let me do a little bit of admin if I could. As always, guys, if you're watching this show and you're liking it and you like what you see, do me a favor, click that like button. I say click the like button, not because I'm bored and I'm nothing better to do. I tell you to click the like button because it matters so we can get past algorithms. So do it. And if you haven't done it yet, what is wrong with you? Go do it now because the like button is free. Just do it. But not just that. If you care about this show and it's good, then do me a favor. Follow the people who are here. Get on Twitter. Check out what people are doing. Check out what Charla's doing. She's at Charla Burnett on Twitter. Check out what Kelly's doing. He's at Kelly Carden 14 on Twitter. Check out what Maj is doing. Check them out at Maj Toure. Check them out on Twitter and follow them. It does matter. They're here giving us some good stuff. Share the love. You want to support the show? You can do that too. Advocates.org. If you go to the advocates.org, take one of the surveys. Anyone you want. Police accountability. There's a monetary policy one. There's one on identity politics. Take one of the surveys. Doesn't matter which one, whichever one you like. It's about 4 or 5 minutes, and then share it. It's free. It supports the show because it supports my sponsors. So please do that. If this show matters to you, then please go ahead and do that. It helps tremendously. I do want to grab a couple comments. A lot of people are commenting. I'm going to grab some of those if I could. Let's see. You guys have some fans here, which is nice. So that's pretty good. So Jessica says, woo Kelly. So if someone likes you, that's good. There we go. So Michael Long says, oh yeah, Black Guns Matter guy. That's how I know him. So someone knows you're the Black Guns Matter guy. That's good. So yes. Matthew says the Republican Party was at first a third party as well.
Yes.
Very true. People don't always know that. Republican Party was absolutely that. Joe says, haven't had a member of Congress actually live in my district for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yikes.
That's horrible. That's true. Oh my God. Patty says, I live in Plattsburgh, New York. The projects, they are now townhouses, because the poor live here. We can't get our council person to come in because we are the scary area of her district. And that's quoted. Wow.
Yikes.
Wow. Well, here's one of the worst parts. Let's go back to what you tomorrow, Charla. They set up a system to where now once you're a felon and they make you a felon, you can't vote.
Right.
So now, well, I'm sorry, you actually can, but most people don't know that the process to go through, this is to Maj's point, right? That they don't know the process to go through to be able to vote. So they think they can never vote. They don't bother. And if you can't vote, why should I care about you?
Or
This
leave
is the
the
issue that I bring
country.
up often. Well, let me touch the last piece of Charla. The people would say, Larry, why does no one support broken fathers in the family court but you? And I'm very forward. I said, well, let me tell you why. Number one, most men who've been broken in the family court system don't have any money. Their money either went to the court system or it's going to their family. They don't have any money. So they're not a good donor class. And they care about donors. I am dumb, a bad politician, which is why I lost. I don't care about my donors. I care about people. That was dumb of me. But yes, but I care about people. So I actually cared about them. But that's one. And number two, when you start supporting men, particularly white men in America today, when you start doing that, you can be in trouble. Oh, that means you hate people of color, or that means you hate women, or you're misogynistic, blah, blah, blah. And they're afraid of, oh, father's rights means you love men and you hate women. So there's a worry about both the culture war and the economics of it. And I think that's another way they set the system of people who are, down and out to stay down and out. I'm sorry, Charlotte, go ahead.
Yeah.
Wait, real quick. I'm going to tap out, guys, because I got to get ready for this thing in the morning. I appreciate you all for sharing your time. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I just learned like 8 different things in this last hour. So I just want to thank y'all all tremendously. Please, guys, make sure you are sharing this episode, sharing the Sharpe Way. Make sure you are following these wonderful speakers and community activists that are doing the work for our communities. We, as cliche and as overused as the statement was, and they were not trying to be legitimate for the last 3 years when they were saying we're all in this together. The reality is we actually are, especially when you have people that are doing the actual community work. So please, guys, make sure you're following Larry, make sure you're following Charla, make sure you're following Kelly, and supporting the work that they're doing. I appreciate y'all for having me. I'm going to dip out. I appreciate y'all.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right.
Later,
Peace, y'all. All right.
The final point that I want to make, as gotta get the camera over here somewhere where it's.
Yeah, just move me too.
I'm sorry, I messed you guys up, didn't I? Charlotte, you have to move yourself to the right. There we go. Now you're good.
Okay, now it's good. Anyways, the one point that I think I should make as like the only woman in the room is that one, it's not the inequity Olympics. We don't need to sit here and compete about who has the hardest time, but for women in regards to going third party, we have to contextualize it as that women are much more risk adverse than men.
Yes.
So you're going to have to offer them something that's better than what they already have, right? And if they do have some baseline level of being taken care of by the system when they don't have a partner to help them with things, when they're doing it all on their own, then of course they're not going to leave for a third party.
Right.
We might have more opportunities in the fact that we're rarely without housing. We will be provided housing, particularly if we have children, which separates us from men living on the streets. But we usually are the one with our kids all day, every day. We do the emotional, physical labor of child rearing, usually alone as a single parent. Like I can understand that situation and how frustrating and how that takes any time for politics pretty much off the table because you're having to raise children. But because we have these children with us, taking risks is much greater. If you're a guy on the streets, you're going to be able to take a lot of risks because you're like, what do I have to lose? And for us, not only are we care about our children and their upbringing and what happens to them, but if something happens to them, it's our asses going to jail.
Right.
Because the country
Right.
hates women. And so if they end up
the country loves mothers, it hates what they see as bad mothers.
Right.
They
Exactly.
decide who the bad mother is, and they go, oh, you are now the evilest thing in the world. Yes.
Right. So, if you turn your back for a second, your kid drowns, you're getting murdered too, which is literally just happened to someone in my community when we got a new prosecutor. So,
wow.
We're constantly kind of in fear of taking any type of risk. And so you would have to be able to provide us with that same safety social net that we already are being provided for us to go to a third party.
It's funny. Patty brings it right up. She says, free food and fun for kids and parents will listen. Barbecue and free kites with your message. A 4-page coloring book and a magnet with a message. Your message goes up on the fridge. Right? This is kind of what you were talking about, Kelly. The idea of you got to feed them. You got to give them something, right?
Yeah, that's the same thing we do in pizzerias to get business. You have to look at the economics of all of it. But to what Charla just said, yeah, you're right. How do I think women regularly get bullied, women that are on assistance for receiving assistance, but what else are they supposed to do?
Yes.
So what's the libertarian answer to that? Ending the things that make single moms, like the war on drugs that has destroyed Black communities and thrown Black men in prison now for 50 years, right? I mean, ending the war on poverty, which is the same thing, the war on crime, all of these things affect men more than women, and they affect
men directly more than women. I mean, women are screwed because there are no men. So the women are also screwed, but the men are just screwed directly. It's the women who are screwed indirectly.
Correct. I mean, well, like every tax is regressive, the women are the final point of spending the money, so they would, of course, be hurt the worst, right? It makes perfect sense. Which is, so how do we end single motherhood and single fatherhood? That's what we're all trying to figure out, and getting in the community, empowering people with the knowledge that they have. So I'm gonna plug on Project Decentralized Revolution for the Mises Caucus.
Please.
I'm a trainer for that. Just like you are. You're doing a training in a couple of weeks.
I am, April 2nd.
I'm doing May 14th. I'm doing May 14th in Oakland. So that'll be fun. But we always say, find lower level seats that you can do libertarian things with. And that's what I'm doing now. Is my seat that I have is unpaid and has no legislative powers. So people are like, oh, you have no pull, but I can call anyone in the county that I need to at any given time.
Right.
So what I've done with that seat is just I'm bringing the county heads to our little town. I live about 90 miles from the county seat. So by bringing the department heads, we're making them explain to the residents what services that they have to offer, because they're already paying for it.
Yeah.
So
and this is the thing that some people get mad at libertarians. They go, well, you don't want you're a libertarian, but you run welfare. You're a libertarian, but you take Social Security. I pay for it. Yeah. And the money's good, right? People say, Larry, I've had people tell me this, Larry, I don't know. Should I, I want to be a good libertarian. Should I take the money from the government? I'm like, okay, in theory, this is only theoretical. If in theory, you didn't take the money the government's going to give you and they were going to dole it back out to the people because you didn't take the money, in theory, that'd be fine. The reality of it is they're going to spend it anyway. We have to change the system. While we have this bad system, take the money. I don't care if that makes you angry. You're too pure libertarian pure. Don't be dumb. The government's going to spend the money. It's already out there. If you don't get it, someone else is getting it. Take your money. It's fine. Plus, they've been robbing us for decades. So get some of your money back. That's all I'm saying. Get some of your money back.
I try to explain to people that exact same thing. I mean, the money's going if you don't take it back, they're just going to waste it on something else.
Absolutely.
So
they're going to bomb somebody in Afghanistan or something with it. Whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, let's not pretend like Matt Gaetz wouldn't drop a bomb on my front doorstep if it would make me stop tweeting at him.
Of course it would. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I'm not sure if you're a fan of John Oliver, but he just did a show about financial assistance in this country and about how only a small portion, less than 20% actually ever gets doled out to individuals in need. It sits literally in banks and just doesn't get used at all. Or it gets used to, build a, what was it? A volleyball court for Brett Favre. What are we talking about here?
Yes.
In reality, spend that money on the things that you need, because if you don't, they're going to spend it on something else. Our mayor took some of the funding for the COVID funding, and they're redoing a pool that really hasn't been used by the community in a number of years, but they said it's a historical pool, so they want to revitalize. It's going to cost millions of dollars.
So
I think my house is historical. Why don't you redo my house?
Yeah.
Well,
It's historical.
people froze to death 3 weeks ago because we don't have
Oh.
overnight warming shelters in the state capital.
Wow.
in Michigan,
That's terrible.
Yes, in Michigan.
Wow.
that's
Wow.
insane to me.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me
I
grab a
know.
comment if I could. Morgan says, poor blacks get sold on government and poor whites get sold in the church. Is that accurate?
I don't know. It's a pretty interesting thought. I don't know that I.
No, I see where he's coming from, right?
Absolutely.
More poor black people tend to vote left. More poor white people tend to vote right. So I think that's where his head is.
Mhm.
I'm asking though, seriously, is that just a cool thing to say? Or do you think it's actually true?
I think there's probably parts of it to an extent. I don't
Mhm.
know that obviously it's not everyone. I mean, we can't broad brush anything.
Right,
but-
of course. And of
but
course,
it's
this
a
is
super
generic, of course.
simplification that, when you're talking about how to reach people, then yeah, that makes sense. If you know, I mean, we've talked about, single moms being on government assistance, then yeah, if you know where to hit them on, I want to hear what Charlotte has to say.
I think in my community, the attendance of white participants in church has been in steady decline for over a decade.
Yeah.
So I can't necessarily, and if you look at Trump, he definitely wasn't a church attending person to be behind. I think where a lot of that conservatism comes from is just the lack of pay and pay inequality and not having minimum wage rise to inflation while housing and healthcare costs continue to increase. And so they themselves want to be a gangster. They want to be Donald Trump. They want to live the American dream. And, it doesn't matter if you are going to church, you're grabbing someone by the pussy. As long as you promise them the things that they want to hear, they're going to rally behind that because
I think it makes sense.
they're sad because they didn't, the American dream is unattainable, but they feel entitled to it.
Yeah, I think there are two parts that I want to bring up. The first one is, I think you're right. When people get upset that they're not getting what they feel they're due, they will find any champion. It doesn't matter who the champion is, right? It doesn't matter. If the champions, I mean, the example most people don't know is the funny things about both Napoleon, Hitler, and Stalin, three people who took over the countries. Neither of them were native born, right? Mm-hmm. Stalin was from Georgia, Hitler was from Austria, and Napoleon was from Corsica. None of them were native born. They were all foreigners who came into the country and took over the country. Because to your point, Charla, anybody who will do my bidding when I'm desperate, I will take. I don't care who that hero is. I will take any champion. It doesn't matter who that person is. In all three of these cases, none of them were actually even native born. So I think it's an interesting point you brought up. But the second piece I want to bring up is, and this is a personal issue, I don't want wages to go up. I want income to go up. I don't want a living wage. I want a living income. And I think there's a massive difference. If there's going to be any scheme at all to support the poor, I'd rather have a negative income tax than have minimum wage, because now people have to work. I'm also now ordering what private companies should do. Instead, what about the single mom who has 3 kids? She has to go out and be a wage slave now? I don't like minimum wage. I like minimum income. If the government is going to step in and do something, wage is the wrong answer.
Income is it minimum income though still pressuring businesses to do something that they don't want to do?
Not at all. Not at all.
Who's paying the minimum income then?
The minimum income should come as in my plan, which people disagree with, but I think is the right answer. You follow the same model that Singapore follows, that Norway follows. You create an actual banking financial instrument that wealthy people want to put money in because they get a dividend. It's a safe bet like we used to have before the Fed dropped the rates to nothing to where now there's no place to invest. So they're all buying up houses, which is why they're destroying the housing industry, because they're all buying that up. You put it into a fund, just like Singapore and Norway does. It's a massive fund. They put money into it. They get a small dividend. That pays out the negative income dividend. That pays it out to all the Americans who are under a certain number, whatever that number is, right? You do that, taxes don't go up. Taxpayers not paying for it, and now it is a straight
incentive
income.
for businesses to pay for that, though. Like, where is the?
They don't have to. Who cares? They do. I don't care. They do.
Right, but they would just keep decreasing wages and expect the dividends to
wages zero if they want to. They can make them zero if they want to. In other words, let's say, for example, Charlotte. Let's say, for example, from this fund, you're getting. I'm making this number up totally. You're getting $2,000 a month. That's what you're getting from this. $2,000 a month. That's what you're getting. If
just
someone
for
was
work,
paid
or just
for nothing,
just for
existing. Yes. Now, since it's a negative income tax, the more money you make for every dollar you make, you lose 50 cents of your stipend. So you're able to work your way off. So there is no benefits cliff, no taxation, no benefits cliff. So you can just work your way up. If you don't want to work your way up, live on $2,000 a month. Let's say I'm an employer. I'm going to pay you nothing. You go, I don't want to pay for nothing, Larry. I'm going to stay home and get $2,000 a month. So I have to pay you more than $2,000 a month, or why would you bother doing it? I have to. Or I can pay you less, and you can decide, you know what? I'm going to work for Larry. He's only paying me $100, but I'll work for anyway, because you still get your money. You don't lose your money because you're working.
I'm familiar with these economic systems, but there's still an enforcing government. And that's why I'm not a libertarian.
I wish I could have.
So,
Charla, I wish we had no enforcing government, but I'm realistic. I am, in my heart, I am absolutely a total voluntarist. But in reality, I'm a minarchist. Because there's no way we're getting to a voluntary society, at least in the near future.
People don't give a shit about us. Like, let's just make that clear.
Don't.
They really
100%.
don't. They can't.
So I'm trying to find.
Can't make the connection between their safety and everyone's economic prosperity.
I am trying to find the least bad model. I'm looking for the least bad model with the least government interference, with the simplest plan for the average person to understand, where the money does not go through government. It comes directly from a fund, directly to you. So nobody can get between, no middlemen, nobody taking a cut, none of that. It goes to you.
Admin bureaucracy.
It's a fund, it goes to you. That to me seems to be the least bad model. And it shows that if you want to work, and if you decide, you know what, I want to change my career completely, and I need to now volunteer so I can learn how to do that, you can. You want to take a year off and go to school, you can if you want to. You can do that. You're not going to live high on a hog, but you'll survive. And if you get a small part-time job, you'll make some extra cash. And now you can go have your go party on a weekend if you want to, because you made some extra cash by working a bit if you want to. But that's a better system than that. Plus, it ends all of the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy of the welfare state goes away.
Because everybody will just go to the doctors because they can afford to pay for it. So this huge burden on the system when it comes to covering people's healthcare would be taken away.
Absolutely.
We probably would have homes and assets being taken care of more, so our communities wouldn't look like they're just falling apart in blight. Like there's all these external benefits from having a basic universal income that we can't.
But it's not a basic universal income, because I don't want Bill Gates getting it. I don't want bankers getting it.
But essentially, anyone who doesn't want to work would still have an income that would allow them to be able to feed themselves, to have a house, and be able to have access to health.
Not have a house, but have a home.
Have a home.
That's what I would say. Have a home. The odds of you being able to buy a house or not is slim to none. But will you have a roof over your head? Will you have food in your stomach? Yes.
Come to Michigan and you can have a house on that.
Maybe, yes. But
I have to drive 90. I drive 90 miles to work each day so I can afford the house I live in, because Los Angeles is so expensive.
There we go. So my only point is I think if we're gonna go that route, it has to be an income. It can't be a wage. It's got to be an income. It's the future in my view. In fact, if you watch any of the TV shows with the future, everyone talks about it. They call it basic assistance. They call it this. It's the future. I wish it wasn't going to happen, but I can't see any other answer.
I lived in Europe for almost 3 years. I know that it works. So
yeah, I see it as an answer. I just see it. I know my libertarian people are like, Larry, don't do it. I have accepted the reality of what's going on. I wish we could have a better answer, but I just don't see one. I don't see one. And it's that, or we keep building upon a broken bureaucracy that keeps spending money and keeps not servicing people. Because it gets so, this is the point I was making before, Charlie, like if I'm in trouble, right? Let's say I have a brother or a sister who's in trouble, mental illness or addiction. They can't navigate the system to get the help anyway, because they just can't do it. But if all I do is go, hey, this is my brother or my cousin, can I sign up his income, $500 a month to go to this landlord so he can have a house to stay in? The landlord goes, yeah, I'll make tiny houses and I'll get my $500 guaranteed from the thing. So now he's got a house. He has a place he can go to. So now when I got to find my addict, I can go find my, because some of you probably know my mom was an addict. And when you have an addict in your life, they just go away.
Yeah.
Like they just go away. You don't know where they are. Sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks or months.
Yeah.
They just go away. You don't know where they are. Well, now she got a house. At least they can find her. At least they can find her. So that's why the income issue to me is okay. I'm sorry, say again?
It would keep them a lot safer. It's a big difference than living on the street without a door and a deadlock, you know?
Yes.
So.
And something else, look, to Kelly's point, look, let's say, you know, I want to become part of the church. I want to start showing up, right? Kelly's doing his work. I want to show up. I don't show up for a couple days, couple weeks. Kelly knows where to go.
Yeah, I go looking.
He can send somebody. He can go, hey, go check on Larry. He hasn't been here in a couple weeks. Go see what's going on. So now someone and then all of a sudden I feel like, oh, somebody cares about me. Huh. Maybe my life is worth something. Maybe I should go back and see if I can get some help. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit preachy here, I know, but I have a thing that the wage issue is not the answer. It's what everyone's saying, and it's not the answer. It's income or something else. Wage is not the answer.
I actually really like how you explain that, because living in LA, wages are skyrocketing. I mean, I pay a dishwasher today like $21 an hour.
Yep.
You know, to wash dishes, you know, and and I can't hire any cooks because they all want more than $20 an hour, you know. And
yes,
so I understand both. I think that it's not just the wage, obviously. It's about, you know, the inflation and doing it's the other governmental instruments that are so broken that they drive all the costs up. Right. You know, I was talking to my dad about it a couple weeks ago. I make almost double more than he made his top year working when he worked. But I'm just as month to week, paycheck to paycheck as he is. Was. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, I get it. It's I don't know that there's ever going to be a right or wrong answer, but I know that what's happening now isn't working. People are being.
Well, what I would say is, in the long run, we got to build community. Because Jessica brings this up. Jessica says what Larry's saying about the Greek community is exactly what I was thinking when Maj was talking about the Jewish community. Any strong community is like that. We have to build our communities out, and we have done a poor job of it. Right? We have to build communities out. Communities have been decimated since the 60s, 70s, 80s, just decimated. And we've got to build our communities back. People need help. They fall down. They make mistakes. They either do something bad or they're unlucky, or they have they won didn't win the right lottery when it came to genetics or whatever. Something, people have problems.
They were the one Asian guy in the family that can't do math.
Yeah, be the guy in the family that can't do math. Yes. I mean, it's the way it is. We have to find a way to support people. I just think government's the wrong answer, but we don't have any other answer right now that's working.
Yeah.
And not that government's working very well, but the one advantage that you have with government is, generally speaking, you're not going to starve to death, which is not a high bar, right? I'd like it to be better than that, but but without it right now, people might starve to death. So I'd like people to not starve to death. Then let's move forward from there, is I guess where I'm going with that. Maybe that's where my head is. It sounds so bad. I'm a libertarian. I'm talking bad stuff. I apologize. So anyways, I know some of you are gonna be mad at me. Libertarians will be like, how dare you say that stuff? Anyway, but I do want to head back to, if I could, I know I've been talking about it before, but is it worth it for, and it's going to sound horrible, but I'm just being very forward politically, is it worth it for us to make the investment in the communities? And if you would ask the two major parties, the answer is clearly no. They're not doing what it takes. The Republican Party is either non-existent or terrible at communicating. The Democratic Party is at best patronizing when they show up, right? At best. They are, but many of these marginalized communities don't want to talk to anyone who's outside of those two. Whether you're Green Party, whether you're Forward Party, whether you're Libertarian Party, they don't really want to talk because they feel like you can't do anything for them. But the other people do nothing for them. Is it worth it, or should we walk away and try to find easier pickings?
So I work it. So there's two reasons why. One, I actually care about people, right? I didn't go into politics. I didn't go into politics to get rich. You know, we live in a really modest home. My mom lives with me, so we have a 3-generation home. You know, I'm not, and it's almost paid off. So like that's all.
Nice.
You know. So I care about people, so that I will always push the issue for people, right? Even those that disagree with me, I will always give them a voice. Even if I don't necessarily agree with them, I'm happy to speak for them, right? But Maj said something earlier, and he was talking about storytelling. And I've been teaching about branding, and when you tell stories about your life, you're allowing other people to see themselves in you.
Okay.
And then you can build trust. And that's how on the campaign trail, that's how I took, personal connections and turned them into legitimate policy discussions, was just by being available to hear stories and reciprocate those stories back. I think we don't do a good job of.
Let me walk to another part, though, if I could, Kelly. For you, Charla, you are out there trying to make things happen, but things in many cases aren't getting better. I feel, and I felt many times, what the hell am I doing? Right? I'm trying to show people a better way. I'm trying to give people a better answer. I'm trying to come up with real plans and ideas, and it doesn't get better. I still keep doing it, clearly because I'm stupid, I guess. I don't know. But I keep doing it. But is it time to just pack up and say, we're done? Look, it's not getting better. So, let me wait till the situation changes.
I don't necessarily think that giving up is the right answer, but I definitely think that as activists and people who work in the community, it is important to be concerned about our own mental health and for the health of our children, because we're trying to break transgenerational curses out here. And if we don't start with our own kids, how are we ever going to do that? So, and a lot of times we have this tendency to be a martyr and be out in the streets all the time and not at home with our own children. So I've been really contemplating this a lot lately because things aren't getting better. My son's now coming of age. He's, he asks for me more. He's like, why aren't you around? Why are you doing that? Like, why do you care about all these other people and not care about me? And I'm not going to have him grow up in a situation where he thinks that I cared about a bunch of other people before I cared about him. And I think that that's another contributing factor as to why people at the end of the day, once they have children, they take a step back, they become more conservative, they take less risk, because we have to. Because if we're not there for our kids, nothing is going to change, because that is actually our one greatest shot to really change the world, is by raising and teaching our kids how to be better than we were before.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And I say all the time, activist burnout is real. It's a real thing. People kind of laugh, oh, activists, but I'm like, no, that's a real thing, right? They get burned out and now we lose them. And the worst part is so many of them don't transition out well. They don't. If they would transition out well, we'd be able to share some of that institutional knowledge. They don't do that. They either just disappear or they rage quit. So those are the two ways they go. Sometimes so now both. I lost everything. Sometimes both. Yes, exactly. And then how do I get that back? I don't. I lost my activist. I lost her institutional knowledge, and now I don't have. I don't even know what happens. Everything begins to fall apart. I'm starting from scratch again, and wondering what am I doing? So I guess it can be challenging.
But I think that's why we should treat each other with kindness and understanding, particularly empathy when we screw up, when we're having a hard day and maybe we lost our shit on someone, or maybe we posted a post that wasn't the right thing, or maybe we, just took a different action that we personally wouldn't have taken or we didn't think was the right way. Instead of just offering criticism, we should be inboxing them directly and being like, hey, you look like you're having a hard time. Is there something I can do for you to fill your cup so that you can continue filling everyone else's cup? But instead, we live in a space where the left, or wherever you find yourself in the spectrum, they're like eating each other, where they really spend all day criticizing one another instead of lifting one another up. And that's why we lose our greatest, most innovative activists who get burnt out, is because we're not working together to fill each other's cups.
Libertarians, you hear what she's saying. Listen to what she's saying. When I say something you don't like, yes, if I say something you don't like, you don't have to put me on blast. You can just DM me. You don't have to put, I'm going to say it specifically for libertarians. I say this all the time. I got to call out bad behavior in the Libertarian Party. No, you don't. You don't have to. You choose to because you want to be righteous. And that's okay, but don't pretend like you have to.
You're virtuous.
You choose to,
the benefit of the community. Yes. That's for the benefit of your own feel-good thing, so you can act superior over someone else.
Absolutely. There's another option. DM me and go, Larry, what the hell was that?
I think
and
you're
if
wrong.
I screwed up,
Let's talk about it.
you're right, I screwed that up. Let me pull that off. What was I thinking? Or maybe I meant it, in which case I will tell you that I meant it. Either one. You could just, or I'll explain it. Maybe it came across wrong. Whatever the case may be, you can always DM. You could do that, is all I'm saying. Perfect.
Yeah, Larry, I don't know if you remember Anthony Strauss from California, my buddy. Mm-hmm. So he says something all the time that people have lost their manners. If we just had manners again.
Yes.
Like, holy cow. Just be nice to
people. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And I never understand how people can walk around and get into fights everywhere they go.
Yes. Always fighting. Well, Charla, you have some fans.
And get beat up by a stranger.
Morgan's like, say it, Charla. Patty's like, Charla, 100%. There we go. Yes, they like it. Absolutely. And then Joe also goes, candidate burnout is real also. Yes, candidate burnout also real.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say it's sometimes harder as a political candidate. I mean, that's why I won't run for office, because all of your personal life ends up out in the open and in public.
I know.
Where people just get to criticize you and your family, and it like impacts every aspect of your life. So like, why would any of the good people want to go pursue a political position when it actually does them more physical and emotional harm?
Yeah, when I was running, I had to have a talk with my daughter's mom, and I had to tell her, hey, I'm gonna do a picture that has her in it, so that she's not left out. And she kind of was like, oh no, I don't really want her in the public eye, and I respect that. But I had to be very honest with her. I had to say, hey, look, like, I'm cool to not talk about her, but understand that if I don't, somebody is going to go public and say how they found my brown bastard child.
Yes, absolutely.
Because people are fucking crazy.
Absolutely.
One lady insisted that I was unqualified because I was unemployed and I wasn't married. Even though I've been with my girlfriend for 13 years and I literally was unemployed because of COVID.
Wow.
Like, are you kidding? Like, and then I had to say something I said, listen, the other guy drove a Schwann's truck for his profession. I ran the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Like, which one of us is professionally unqualified?
I like that. It's good. So, Charla, they're asking about your tattoo/necklace. Joe says, is that tattoo or is it a necklace? And Ken says, it looks like an owl tattoo.
I've been looking too.
A lunar moth that looks like an optical illusion of an owl.
There we go. See, got you all, Ken. You didn't know. See,
hey, can you throw Charla's her organization up somewhere? I'd love to support your organization, Charla.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. It is actually in the description. Charla, do you want to shout your organization out real fast?
Yeah. I mean, I'm affiliated with a couple organizations, but my consultancy is Organizing Together, and we're trying to change the way that we campaign and lobby to change the government. So putting power back in the people's hands, particularly around policy development and how we collect that data and what people want to see. And then our transitional house is a Moja house here in Lansing, Michigan. And we've hosted 180 people in the last year and a few months. And so that's been really great. We've offered free to reduced housing for 22 individuals because it's an operations kind of research based where we don't take any public funding. We produce our own funding by generating revenue by providing short-term housing for people who can pay.
There we go.
That's awesome. Thank you for being here, Charla. Like, this is important. I tell people all the time, like, we get so caught up with talking to people that believe the exact same as us that we never change anything because we don't have any help from anyone else who has more knowledge than us.
Well, I just love learning about what you guys are doing because it's a different perspective. Like I said, I'm not a libertarian, so I definitely sometimes don't agree with everything, everyone says across the line. But the thing is we've come to a place in this nation where we can't even have a conversation about it. We get so offended. And it's at that point, the conversation just gets shut down. Nobody learns, nobody grows, nothing changes. We become stagnant. And that's what's happening here is that we're not allowing ourselves to grow and become better people by learning from one another.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Karen brings up a question. Karen says, wouldn't we have apartments full of 10 drug addicts destroying neighborhoods and not being productive? I would argue, Karen, we have that now.
Yeah.
If we have that now, but they're just outside now destroying neighborhoods and not being productive. So at least they wouldn't be getting wet from the rain. At a minimum, they wouldn't be getting wet from the rain. Right now, that's now, right? Kensington, that Maj talked about is that times 1,000, times 10,000.
We could train and employ social workers to live in these houses with these individuals and ensure their safety at all times. We have programs in the United States where Vista Corps members and all different types of programs that do things similar for nonprofits could be doing this work.
Happening right now in the Bronx. We have them in the Bronx right now. Yeah, already being done. What winds up happening is the thing to remember, why does an addict become violent or aggressive or steal or rob? They're trying to get high again, right? That's the problem. They're trying to get high again. Why does an addict not get help? Because they're jonesing for their drug. Yeah. No addict asks for help when they're jonesing. They ask for help when they're no longer jonesing. That's when they ask for help. When they come down and go, I don't want to do this anymore. When they finally say, I'm at my bottom, whatever their bottom is, that bottom is different people. When they hit that bottom, sadly for my mom, it was jail. But for some people, it's jail. Some people, it's whatever the thing is. They lose something that they don't want to lose or whatever is the thing. When that happens, they go, all right, I'm ready now. And if you have people in the homes, and this is something else that people don't realize, when you have homes like this, what winds up happening is people who get clean actually stay in the homes longer because they want to help others. Mm-hmm. And no one's going to help you with your problem better than someone who's had your problem, whatever that is, whether that's addiction or whether that's, mental illness, whether that's gambling problems, whatever it is, whatever problem, if they had it too, they can call you out and go, no, you're full of shit. I've been there, brother. You're full of shit.
And then it goes back to the branding, because then you're able to share your story. So it's all reciprocal in nature. It's a long game, and it's a lot of touches, and it's a scary community. But I always say people are, aren't more people just going to do drugs? Maybe, right? Like, I don't know. But the only real example we have is Portugal. And they use drugs at the same rate, but they also have like a 97% rehabilitation rate.
Yes.
So
yes,
we already have addicts, and we're never going to get rid of addicts because people are always going to make horrible decisions. People are always going to feel stressed, and life is just going to kick the shit out of you. But being able to find someone, like I'm a big advocate of safe injection sites.
Mm-hmm, me too.
Why is going to go in, and there's going to be a nurse who's going to make sure, you're not going to kill yourself with a dirty needle. You're not going to inject some nasty ass anything into your veins. And then they're going to hand you a pamphlet. And they're going to talk to you about getting. But
here's the thing I want to push, though, here. This thing I need to put in this. It's really important. Mm-hmm. This can't be a government-run program.
No.
Because Karen's going to bring up a part again. And Karen's right when she says this. She says, in 6 years of regular homeless outreach, I have helped countless start the process, driven through the rehab, and exactly one got out and got it right. And her point's valid. The current system doesn't work at all. A government-run system fails constantly. The ones that work well,
an underfunded system works incorrectly. We have not had underfunded programs do not work effectively. When all you can do is
fund them effectively in government. Government can't fund it effectively on a massive scale. There will always be so much corruption; it will fail.
Well, we chose a military budget over our own people is what happened.
Yes, constantly. And that will keep happening because there's a military industrial complex. There's an addiction industrial complex. There's a homeless in New York City, there's a homeless industrial complex. The homeless system is just a money-making system, which is why I'm saying
people stepping up to foot the bill for that, right? So
because there's no system for it. Why would they?
There are systems for it. We have nonprofit organizations in almost every community doing harm reduction. I don't see any rich people reaching out to them and handing over their money.
Well, they do tell you why. It's never going to go to the right place.
I'm gonna answer your question, Charles, and be very clear about this. If I'm wealthy, why do I give money? It's not because I care, because I don't. I give money because I get something in return, whether that's a warm, fuzzy feeling, my name on a building, political influence, something. That's why I give money. That sounds terrible, but that's how people with lots of money think, period. And we can get mad at them if you want to, or you can use them, which is what I want to do instead. So why would I give money to your nonprofit when I give money to Joe Schmo politic guy and get some influence? or give money to a hospital and get my name on a children's wing. But if we do decide to set up to where now we can sponsor the buildings should be sponsorable. So you know what? I want a legacy because I'm rich Larry Sharpe. I want the Larry Sharpe rehab building in the Bronx where I grew up. Fine. You've pumped my ego. Here's $10 million. We don't do that. We expect the rich person to give money because they care about the problem. They don't. But give them their ego, give them whatever they want, let them feel good, put the name on a building, and let them give you $10 million.
I mean, that's essentially what Umoja Houses did, though. It's taken private investments in these houses, and then we pay rent back to those individuals for the houses, and anything over the utilities and the cost of the rental agreement goes back into subsidizing rents.
There we go.
And I know I'm not the genius who made this up. People have been trying to do this for ages, but it's convincing these investors that instead of making the money off the rent, which is usually how the money is made in income, is in rental income, not in the sale of the house and its value increase over time. So until people have an understanding where they don't want that instant gratification and they're okay taking that long-term investment and taking it out later, we have to change that mindset about it. And that's a cultural thing in the United States, because in other countries,
I brought up something
else. Long-term cultural understanding of time.
I brought this up with someone who got mad at me. He was Democrat and got mad at me. I said, if you want them to do that, make the investment that they put into the housing for people who are in trouble, whatever that is. If you make the investment and you shift it either into nonprofit or you shift it into rent to own, either one, so giving people the option to own their own apartment if they want to, or into low rent, either one, whatever makes the most sense. When the property is sold or whenever the profits come in, make that tax deductible. There's no tax on that. Mm. That's not how the current states work. That's all considered. That is all considered capital gains. Mm-hmm. And what a Democrat told me, you just want to give rich people a tax break. I'm like, no, I want them to put their money in the right spot. Right now, they're giving it to wrong spots right now. They're gonna spend their money. They're either gonna buy up a bunch of housing so that now young people can't get housing anymore, which is happening now, or they're gonna put $100 million into somebody's campaign so they can buy a politician, or they can give people free houses. I don't care. So anyway, but my point being, I'm with you. I just think the current system, it can never work. You've got to change the system to give them what they want so they will put their money in the right spot. I don't think that rich people or big corporations are evil. They are apathetic. And if we create the incentives the right way, we can incentivize them to do the right thing. But our incentive structure right now is to do the bad thing. So they do the bad thing. And maybe I'm preaching again. But anyway, I have a habit of preaching. I apologize, guys. I do it sometimes. So yes. No soundbites alive, who, as Michael Voss says, no, Larry, government wants it to fail as dependence guarantees power. I think there is some truth to that. I think the average person and this is why I feel so bad. I think the average person who works for either an agency or who works for a nonprofit being subsidized by the government does not think that, Michael. I think they are trying to make a difference. I think they want to help. I think they think it's the only way to do it. I think the people at the top I agree with you completely. People at the top are like, no, this is now my new job. I'm going to buy my third house off this. So I got to make sure I keep riding it till I'm 65. So I can't solve this problem. I got to keep finding ways to spend my money. Absolutely. I think that's true. Government agencies, I'm not impressed by most of them. I know it sounds terrible, but Dan says, the more money is forced taken out of people's paychecks, the less likely they're going to donate out of what's left. So government kills charity.
Well, government kills charity by making it almost impossible to do charitable work.
Yes, I agree with. Yes, yes.
That's why Umoja House is a for-profit entity, is because we can't give out money in the way that we need to solve problems, because there's all these regulations on how we can give money to individuals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Larry, you made a comment earlier about why the rehabilitation rate is so bad, or you kind of asked why. Well, because most rehabilitation today in this country for drugs is based on punishment.
Right.
We're not rehabilitating people because we care about them. We're rehabilitating them because we think they're like a scourge to society.
Yeah, they're broken. They're bad.
It's detox. You got 5 days. You better figure it out after that, because we're done with you. You better get your life together.
Even though in my county there was just a deputy who had the charges dropped against her. She admitted to taking cocaine with her to the jail and being high when she got there. They just dropped the charges on her. I mean, that's kind of where, Charlotte, I get with like the idea of government doing it. They can't keep drugs out of prisons.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I have a nephew in jail. He texts me all of the time.
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
Always on Facebook. Dude, how are you always? Oh, we paid a prison guard and they brought it in.
There we go. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, I mean, it's tough, you know, and I'm really thankful, Charlotte, for what you do. I mean, in your community, I think that's great. I was reading about your emoji house earlier before we started, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be awesome.
I mean, it's very contextual. It can't work everywhere. And I just feel really a lot of gratitude to be able to make that investment for my community, because I spent 13 years in college getting a PhD so that I could actually work my way out of poverty, because I grew up with a single, mom family. My dad didn't graduate from high school. I'm the first person to go to college. But even then, when you come back into your own community, I'm now the bourgeois, which is just like a really interesting perspective, because I'm still
all bougie now
in the rough part of the community. But because I own property in my community, that automatically puts you in a different level.
Right.
So it's a struggle to be out there trying to do better for yourself, and then all of a sudden coming home and being blamed for doing better. So I think there has to be something there that bridges that gap, because I hear that happens for so many people.
And then why would you ever go home again?
Let me grab a couple of these if I could. Kevin says, keep them safe until they're ready to get clean, then help them get clean. Oh, I like that. It sounds nice. I do like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Karen says, we have that now. They remove addicts for bad behavior. With the proposed model, they will be inside the home owned by someone else, destroying it. And we know how hard the eviction is when the rent is paid. Yes, but the piece in this case, kind of the model, and again, there are models doing this. The model is that one of two ways. The one model that I've seen is happening right now in the Bronx is all you have to do is pay 1/3 of your income, whatever is your income. All you have to do to live in the house is you agree to tell them how much money you're making, wherever you get your money from. You pay 1/3 of that. As long as you agree to that, you're in. You don't get thrown out for going back falling off the wagon. You don't get thrown out for any of that stuff. Why do they not destroy the home? And statistically, they don't. They don't destroy the homes. Why? Because it's their home. So they don't destroy their own home. Small and tiny homes are generally pretty good, because most people who've been on the street for a long time get accustomed to being in small spaces. So if you give them a bigger home, they'll actually just go into one area of the home anyway and kind of live there anyway. So that's why you want to be able to change the rules. Right now in New York City, they have to change the rules, get special waivers, because you can't build those kind of homes in New York City. It's against the law. So you have to allow them to build these homes for people like that, studio apartments, even though, by the way, you can live in a studio apartment that's basically someone's closet with 9 people. You just can't build a new one. So in any case, they do that all the time. To change how that's going to get people to be there, and they tend to not destroy. But even if they do, and it does happen when people who, specifically if you have an addiction problem and mental illness, it does happen sometimes. And when that happens, then they repair the home and move on. It's a home owned by people in a nonprofit world. They know what's going to happen. They have specialists there. It's like it's your home, Karen, right? If you were to be part of this, you would be donating a bunch of money to this place to have your name on the side. You and your group or your company. Ronald McDonald House, perfect example of that. McDonald's has Ronald McDonald House. It's Ronald McDonald's on the house, and they have, if I'm not mistaken, it's children's orphanage. I think that's right.
They house people who are like at hospitals for their children, like kids having surgery and stuff.
There we go. Yes.
That's how it's done. People that we help. So it's me who cleans the rooms and my family and the group of volunteers that we have to come in. And I don't mind doing that. And I never expect somebody who's experiencing mental health issues or experiencing drug addiction to do anything less than that, because they can't function. They're not functioning in the way that other people are functioning at that point in time. My issue that I have is like, okay, I'm doing my job and my part. When are the politicians and the other people going to step up and actually move the money and actually change the system? Because while I'm cleaning rooms and picking up needles and pipes, when do I have time to change the system?
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Well, there's differences between activists and politicians, and they're not always the same, right?
That's
I mean,
correct.
you're on the ground. You're not going to be in a boardroom. That's where we need guys like me to win legitimate seats, and we can then, actually work together. So
yes,
and conversations like this is how that happens. I mean, going to single industry coalitions are huge, and
100%. I say it all the time. People get mad at me. Larry, why are you always talking to everybody else? Why aren't you sitting in the libertarian circle and just yelling about how the government bad? Because that doesn't change anything. I need people to create coalitions on specific issues to make our country better. That's what we have to do. So we want to wrap this up, guys. Before we wrap this up, Charla, something you want to talk about before we wrap this up? Or
I was
you
just
already
going
good?
to say the issue, though, when it comes down to it again, is that the structure of the political system is once you're in, you can't do what you want to do because you're looking for the next cycle. And so the system itself isn't even built to do what we want to accomplish. And so Gandhi always had the system of alternative institution building, which is creating systems that are not reliant on the current system whatsoever.
Yes.
And that's what we need to be focused on, is having our own government. We have a people's council here in Lansing that is its own city council outside of it, that's creating its own ways and mechanisms to support the community.
I love that. Kelly, anything you want to say when we wrap this up?
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Charla, for being on here. I thank Maj for being on here with us. Anyone listening, you can go to runaslibertarian.com and you can get signed up to learn how to run for office. Larry and I are both trainers on that.
Absolutely.
If you are in Michigan, if you are a libertarian in Michigan, I highly would ask you to follow Charla and support her mission, because we need to be good partners of work that's happening. And as soon as I'm off, I'm going to put a little bit of a donation in, because I really believe in what you're doing. So, and for everyone else, Project Decentralized Revolution, we're going to be in, I think, 11 or 12 cities, or I think it's 8 cities, maybe. Larry's in New York
City, April 1st and 2nd. April 2nd, I'm teaching the class. If you want to learn how to run for office, learn from someone who's been through the most horrible runs ever. I will teach you everything to not do. Guaranteed. I got you covered. I got you covered.
That's it. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate you both being on here for 2 hours.
Guys, everybody, last piece I will bring up. Please, if you did like what you saw, please click that like button. It does matter. Please follow everybody. Check them out in the description. And please support my sponsors at theadvocates.org. Please take one of those surveys or tests. It does matter, and it's free. If you like this, you want to keep going, you got to support it. Guys, thank you so much. I will see you all.
Larry. Nice to meet you.